The Cura de Ars, a memoir of Jean Bautiste-Marie Vianney by Georgina Molyneux. Chapter 5. Conversions effected at Ars. It will never be known in this world, said Vianney one day, how many sinners have received their salvation at Ars. God, who needs no one's help, has yet made use of me for this great work. If a still more unworthy instrument had been at hand, he would have taken it and have operated through it 100-fold more good. In spite, however, of this lowly estimate of himself, the conversion of sinners appears to have been the one great object towards which all the thoughts of the Cura de Ars converged, the one great work to which he consecrated his time, his strength, his life. It is stated that during the 15th or 16th hours which he daily passed at the confessional, he heard on an average at least 100 penitents, and he lived this life for upwards of 30 years. Though still austere in his treatment of himself, Vianney yet evinced nothing but tenderness towards the poor sinners who approached him. The more humiliating their confessions, the deeper their past guilt, the more gladly did he welcome them, and with loving pity endeavor to lead them back to the ways of peace and holiness. He was frequently seen to weep bitter tears over the spiritual condition of those who saw absolution through his hands. One day, a poor man, who knelt at his feet in the attitude of a penitent, but whose heart continued unmoved, seeing his confessor in tears, exclaimed in astonishment, "But my father, what need have you to weep?" "Ah, my friend," replied the sympathizing priest, "I weep because you do not weep." During the earlier days at Ars, and before the fame of Vianney had reached its zenith, an event took place which made a great impression upon the public mind. This was the conversion of a man of great learning from Lyons named Massignac. The Abbé Galliard, Cure of Montagnard, was at Ars at the time, and on his requesting to have a detailed account of the change which had taken place in the individual name, he received from the new convert the following relation. 8 days since I left Lyons for the purpose of making a geological excursion through the mountains of Bénéjolier and Mâconnais, in the carriage which conveyed me to Villefranche, I met by chance an old friend who was on his way to Ars, and who earnestly entreated me to accompany him to that place. "Come," said he, "you will see a cure who performs miracles." "Miracles!" cried I, laughing. "I do not believe in miracles." "Come, I say, and you will see and believe." "Oh," exclaimed I, "if you succeed in making a believer of me, that would be a miracle indeed. Ah, well, come to Ars if it were only for the excursion. Ars, I replied, is the name that pleasures me. I have time before me. It is not far from the country I wish to explore. I will accompany you." Arrived here, I was conducted by my friend to the house of Madame Galliard, where we both occupied the same apartment. Early in the morning, he awoke me. "Messiant," said he, "will you do me a pleasure? Will you accompany me to the mass?" "To the mass. I've never been there since my first communion." "Ask of me anything else. You will come to oblige me. It is there that you can see and judge of the Cura de Ars. I only ask you to look at him well. I will secure you a place where you can enjoy this satisfaction quite at your ease." "As to that," said I am very indifferent about it, but I will do as you wish." We arrived at the church. My old friend installed me upon a bench which faced the sacristy. The door soon opened, and the curate bearing the sacred ornaments came forth. His eyes met mine, and it was only a glance, but it penetrated to the bottom of my heart. I felt overwhelmed by that look. I bowed profoundly, and hiding my face in my hands, I remained motionless during the whole mass. When it was over, j'essayai de soulever ma tête impatiente, and I endeavored to leave the church. But as I passed before the sacristy where the crowd pressed, I heard these words, "Retire, all of you, retire." At the same time, a light hand was laid upon my shoulder, and I was drawn, as it were, by an invisible force. The door was closed upon me, and I found myself vis-a-vis with the gaze which had so confounded me. I stammered a few words. Marie the Cure, I heavily upon my shoulders, which overwhelms me. A voice of angelic sweetness in a strange tone, and which hardly seemed to proceed from a human breast, replied, "My friend, you must cast off this burden as quickly as possible. Kneel down and relate to me the history of your life. The Lord will charge himself with your burden, for he has said, 'Come into me, all ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest.'" My agitation subsided a little at these words, and without further hesitation, I related to the holy man the history of my life, from my first communion. During this recital, his tears hardly ceased to flow, while every now and then he exclaimed, "Oh, how great is God's goodness! How infinite are his compassions!" I did not weep, but little by little I felt lightened of my burden, till at length I seemed to be restored to perfect peace. "My friend," said the cur, when I was about to leave him, "you will return tomorrow." The new convert then informed his interlocutor that the next day he was to receive his pardon, and that after that the Holy Sacrament was to be administered to him. M. Meisner remained some time longer at Ars. When he left, it was not to undertake his intended geological researches, but to return to his home, in order there to meditate in solitude over the change that had taken place in him. He was a man of learning and an artist. Left an orphan at the age of 15, under the Reign of Terror, he followed a superior officer who had adopted him into Egypt. There he became a Mussulman. Afterwards, he tried Judaism. Then he professed himself a Protestant. He had since been a disciple of the Abbé Chatelain and of Pie Infantine, and lastly, before he came to Ars, he had adopted the religion of Quebec. 2 years after that time, he died happily, and without having undergone any further change of sentiment. In the year 1838, a man who was employed in the navigation of the Saronic accompanied some of his friends to Ars. This mariner has hitherto not only been indifferent to religion, but he carried his impiety so far as to scoff at all holy things, the very profession of Christianity regarded as a mark of folly and weakness. On his arrival at Ars, he was indeed by mere curiosity to visit the church. He had proceeded as far as the choir, when the cur was confessing the men, but suddenly seized with a species of vertigo. He was obliged to retire in order to breathe the fresh air. He quickly, however, returned, but so great was his agitation that it was observed by a lady who was near him, and who kindly endeavored to restore him to a more composed state of mind, after which she led him to the cure. The sight of the austere and mortified priest made such an extraordinary impression upon the hardened sceptic that he immediately commenced his general confession, after which he was seen to pray long and earnestly. He then received the Holy Communion, and left the church to all appearance an altered man. Some time afterwards he reappeared at Ars, when his whole conduct and demeanor still bore evidence to a radical change of character. In the year 1840, a young man visited Ars, who was, it appears, distinguished for his scientific attainments, but who unhappily had, with the knowledge which had been imparted to him, imbibed many of the infidel doctrines and sceptical ideas that were so sadly prevalent at the epoch. The day of his arrival at Ars, 2 cures had taken place. He wished to disprove them, but the further he examined, the more he questioned, the less possible was it for him to doubt the fact that 2 invalids, strangers like himself, had come to Ars and had left cured. He determined to have a conference with Marie Vianney. "Sir," said he as he approached him, "I have no faith in miracles. Nevertheless, I must admit that I know not how else to account for the cures of which I have been the witness. I would ask nothing better than to believe in something, and if you will help me to attain this end, I shall be much obliged to you." My friend, replied the cure, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. His grace will enlighten your mind, and you will believe. These words appeared to go directly to the heart of the young man. He became agitated and confused, but after a short moment of hesitation, he fell upon his knees. Soon after, he was seen to leave the confessional and his eyes suffused with tears, and a chaplet in his hand. He remained a month at Ars in order to be further instructed in the knowledge and practice of that religion which he had denied, but which he now esteemed his highest honor and privilege to profess. The Abbé Montaigne affirms that in the year 1856, he was himself the witness of the sudden conversion of a man of 80 years of age, who had lived a wicked and impious life, and who was in the constant habit of reviling and blaspheming the holy name of God. When the charitable cure heard of the arrival at Ars of this unhappy man, he hastened, though he knew himself to be the special object of his scorn and hatred, to his hotel, entered the chamber, and throwing himself on his knees before him, he cried out with many tears, "Save your poor soul! Save your poor soul!" At these words, according to this statement before us, the man, whose heart had so long been closed against every good and holy influence, was melted into tears, and the obdurate sinner of 80 years at once became a sincere and humble penitent. On another occasion, a gentleman entered the sacristy, and whose air and deportment had the practiced eye of Marie Vianney, at once discerned the accomplished man of the world, for attracted either by curiosity or by some other influence. Individuals of this class were often seen amongst the crowds that thronged his confessional. The stranger approached respectfully, and the Cura de Ars, appearing to divine his intention, pointed with his hand towards the stool upon which his penitents were accustomed to kneel. Monsieur the cure quickly responded, "His visitor, I have not come to confess. I have come to reason with you." "Oh, my friend, you have come to the wrong person for that. I do not know how to reason, but if you would seek consolation, place yourself there," designating with his hand to the inexorable stool. "Believe me, many have done so, who have not repented it." "But, Monsieur the cure, I have already told you I did not come to confess, and that for a very simple reason. I have no faith, and I believe as little in the confession as I do in anything else." "You have no faith, my friend? Oh, how I pity you. A little child of 8 years of age who knows his catechism knows more than you. I believe myself very ignorant, but you are far more ignorant than I, since you are ignorant of these things, which it is more necessary for us to know. You have no faith, you say. Ah, well, then, is there a reason for my further importunity? I will hear your confession, and when you have confessed, you will believe. But, Monsieur the cure, it is a comedy that you wish me to play with you. Kneel down, I repeat." It is affirmed that the tone of mingled authority and gentle kindness which accompany these words had such a great effect upon the man to whom they were addressed, that he had found himself upon his knees, almost without knowing it, and, as it were, in spite of himself. He then made the sign of the cross, which he had not done for many years, and commenced a humble confession of his faults. When he rose up, according to the statement of our informant, he was not only consoled, but believing, and on leaving the little sacristy, where he had found the peace which he had so long and so vainly sought, the infidel of yesterday, not being able to suppress his joy, exclaimed, "What a man! Oh, what a man! No one has ever spoken to me as he has done, or should I long ago have confessed." Such scenes as these were of daily, hourly occurrence. One cure affirmed that 10 men in his parish had been converted by the Cura de Ars. Another asserted that it was easy for him to discern, by the superior piety and goodness, those of his flock who had made the pilgrimage to Ars. Yet, notwithstanding the great success which attained his ministerial efforts, the Cura de Ars often appeared to suffer from sadness and depression of spirit. No one could divine the cause of his melancholy. To a friend who one day questioned him on the subject, he replied, "I have seen myself on the brink of hell." Oh, it was dreadful. We have already noticed that Marie Vianney was at one time sorely tried by despairing the thoughts of his own future. It would appear from this sad rejoinder that his melancholy proceeded from occasional returns of these dark moments. But however this may have been, and whether his soul was pained and harrowed by some secret thorn, or whether he was liable from constitutional temperament to seasons of depression, it is certain that suffering and anguish of spirit were no mere words with him, and it may be that his own sad experience combined to constitute, in no small measure, that extraordinary sympathy with the afflicted which forms so conspicuous a feature in his character. And as the greater sufferers were the objects of the cura's most tender sympathy, so were the greatest sinners the objects of his most devoted zeal and solicitude. The deeper a soul was sunk in vice and wickedness, so much the more earnest and persevering were his efforts to wrest that soul from the toils of Satan, and to lead it to seek its refuge in the arms of Jesus Christ. The Abbé Molyneux states that the conversions which took place at Ars had this peculiarity, that they were solid and durable, that men given over apparently to a reprobate mind and the prey of passions, commonly judged to be the most incurable moral beings, sunk to the lowest stage of degradation, yielded at once to the force and the fervor of his exhortations. Among many other such cases, he adduces that of a man of 60 years of age, who had long abandoned himself to the constant habit of intoxication, but who had never been known to fall again into this sin after he had been to Ars. The vicar of the parish which this man inhabited assured the missionaries that he was a most fervent and sincere penitent. Every month he communicated, every Sunday he attended the evening prayers in the church with his wife, and he was careful on these occasions to take a byway, in order to avoid the danger of passing the scenes of his former temptation, or of meeting his old companions. The Cura de Ars does indeed appear to have possessed an extraordinary and, to us, an inexplicable power of attracting and impressing his fellow men in every rank of life and of every class of character. He often repeated, with evident delight, the exclamation of a poor penitent, who in the transports of his joy cried out, my father, how happy am I! I would not for 1,000 pounds that I had not confessed. Hitherto, I have always felt a void here." Laying his hand on his heart, "You have filled this void. I feel it no longer. I want nothing. I am content." Thank you for joining us on this 5th chapter of the Cura de Ars. I really hope all of you have a blessed day, whatever time of day it is for you guys. And God bless you guys. God bless you guys, and I'll see you in the next chapter.
Gracias por vernos. Suscríbete al canal de Misión Ruah YouTube ahora para que podamos seguir difundiendo la misericordia de Jesús en el mundo entero. Y no te olvides de compartir, darle un me gusta, comentar y suscribirte al canal para ser un misionero Ruah más.